because of the culture changes they engage in, their organizations are able to continue keeping people employed. The customers get their products, they get competitive advantage. Owners, shareholders make more money. I mean, everyone is better off. So you want to have a direction of that cultural change, but you also want to engage the rest of your employees in helping realize that direction.
This is a really rich business masterclass that we've just been through here. Welcome to Start With a Win, where we unpack franchising, leadership, and business growth. Let's go. And coming to you from Area 15 Ventures and Start With a Win headquarters, it's Adam Contos with Start With a Win. We have back on for this two-part series, part 2 of 2. We have Jay Barney, a business school professor, an author, has done a ton of study on how stories change the culture within organizations. Go back and listen to part 1. We get a lot of foundation for this, and we get the first 2 attributes of this great way to change your culture, those being authenticity and star in your own story. You're going to want to go listen to that and dig deep in those. But Jay, we've got 4 more to go here. So let's get right on it. What is the third attribute of creating this culture change through storytelling?
These stories that you're building is you're taking old stories that support an old culture and you're replacing them with new stories. And those new stories have to demonstrate to your employees that there really is something new. New culture is going to be developed here.
I love it.
And again, the book is about the story. So let me just share with you an example of this Make with the Path, with the Path to the Future. So one of our CEOs is recently hired at Gillette Corporation and he's in charge of the developing world business, basically India and China.
Okay.
And at the time that he's given that responsibility, he focuses first on India. They're basically not selling any razors in India. Like 2,000. Like none. Okay.
Wow.
And people are just mystified in the company because, see, at Gillette, they had done the R&D and they had developed this new great technology they thought was going to be great. They had tested this technology on Indians, men in the UK and in the Cambridge area where they had their research labs. And the Indian man who liked it, but liked it a lot. So they thought this is a total win. But they weren't selling any. And so the culture of R&D as the product development at the time at Gillette was the labs develop the technology, they ship it to us, and then we sell it. And so this CEO said, sorry, I'm going to India. And his subordinates say, "You're doing what? That's not what we do here. You're going to go talk to consumers?" He's going, "Look, no, I'm going to India." So it got real big pushback on that. And finally, 6 or so people agree to go with him. And so the little group goes over to India and they visit potential customers. And it turns out that the way that most Indian men shave is inconsistent with the product they were selling. I'll give you an example. Many men in India don't have a separate bathroom they can shave in. They live in apartments that share a bathroom. So you don't shave in the bathroom. You find a little room someplace in your house and you shave with a mirror in that little room. What that means is instead of running water to clear off your razor, you basically have a little cup of water you like this. Okay. Well, it's very easy for the razors to get clogged. And so Gillette's razor was really good, but it was also easily clogged. Then they also don't have a place to store their razor separately. So what they do is we have a little cupboard. I have a little cupboard in my bathroom where I put my razor and put it away. So instead, what they do is they hang the razor on a nail on the wall up above where they shave.
Oh,
Gillette's razor didn't have a nail in it. It didn't have a hole in the handle.
Oh.
Can you imagine? We're talking. This is pretty basic stuff, right? So they learn so much of this experience. They bring it back, and on the airplane back, they actually get together on the airplane and design a new razor for the Indian market. And they go from 0 market share to 20% market share in 2 years.
Wow.
they really came up, which is phenomenal in that market.
That's huge growth.
Basically almost it's huge, unbelievable. But remember, when the culture-changing idea came up, there was resistance, which is, I'm going to India. Well, of course you go to India. This is not rocket science. Of course you're going to go. And so there has to be a break with the past. This has to be completely. We're going to do a different way of doing R&D. It's not that the labs are bad. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we have to do something else for the developing markets, markets in developing countries, economies, and then with a path to the future about how this is going forward. And he began preaching this throughout the organization, and it had a big impact on Gillette's R&D strategy. So break with the past, with a path to the future.
Wow.
But one thing that's important to know here is that this path to the future, the business leader doesn't have to. In fact, we think it's not a good idea for the business leader to rigorously define what that future culture is going to be. It's going to be customer oriented. But that doesn't mean we're going to do the following 17 things. It's not that level of detail, because you want to have a direction of that cultural change, but you also want to engage the rest of your employees in helping realize that direction. And so if you give too much guidance about the future, you actually foreclose learning from your employees. So break with the path with a path to the future rather than a detailed outline of, here are the 7 steps we're going to take to change our culture and that kind of thing.
That's really important for those people listening. I mean, it's, you can't force that direction to the future as the leader. And a lot of people look to the leader, especially in a very
what to do.
Top-down organization, exactly, or even a founder-led organization. They are going to hammer on that path. So, leaders.
Yeah, I think you have a subtlety there that is not in the book, but is certainly something we've seen, which is that many business leaders know that they don't want to over control that change process, but the employees want that control. They want to be told what to do sometimes. And you have to turn around and say, listen, here's the principle. This is the direction we want to go. We want to move in towards a more customer oriented. We want to move in a different direction, whatever. How will that affect your job? You have to figure that out, because you know what you need to do is, this is what the last thing, which is ability to story cascade. You need to build your own story inside the organization. And I can't tell you what the story is, because if I did, it wouldn't be authentic to you, would it? So you have to build your own story. And that means a path to the future, but not controlling too much.
That's good. All right, let's move on to number 4. I really like this one.
Head and heart.
Yes, this is really, really good, especially in today's day and age, because people want to know that you care. So take us down this road.
Here's the thing. First of all, there has to be a business reason for doing culture change.
Okay.
That's the head part. If there's not a business reason, then this is what you're saying. It's like the biggest ego trip imaginable. I know there's not a business reason for doing this culture change, but I've always wanted an organization to have the same values that I have as a person. Give me a break.
Right.
It's like, just give me a break, okay? I mean, I hear that and I just shake my head. So there has to be a business reason. And the business reason we found most of the time is we want to gain competitive advantage for our strategies. We want to prosper and survive. We have to change our strategies, but to implement our strategy, we have to change our culture. And so but you start with, you got to have a good, solid business reason that appeals to your employees' heads. But this is culture. This is about identity and sense of belonging and purpose. So it's also gotta address the heart. It's gotta take that the emotional and personal side as well. The story, the one story that we tell one of my favorite stories of all is a woman who named Melanie Healy, who was the first woman vice president, first general manager of Procter Gamble's feminine care division. Now, we can talk offline why it took 50 years for a woman to come in charge of the fem care division, but that's a different problem. Don't even. So, but now she's in charge, and she begins to reconceptualize the fem care business model. So the business model looks like it's not broken. That's very, very stable growth. Best mill growth is only in growth as a function of the demographic changes. And P&G has 50% of the market, and it's very profitable. Okay, and in that model, the dominant mindset, the culture in femcare has been a more manufacturing model, which is what we want to do is we want our products to work. Obviously, we want to manufacture them at the lowest cost possible because this is not a growing market. So the only way to increase our profits is keeping our costs as low as possible, which increases our margins and where to go. And so it's a very much a manufacturing mindset. And she comes into this saying, wait a second. We're talking about when young women start using our products. This is an important, not just biological, but emotional, social change in their lives. We want our products to be empowering to women. Let's just, yeah, we need manufacturing at low cost. I got that, but we got to go beyond that. We have to have products that treat our customers as individuals. And for boys, when they begin shaving, it's kind of seen as a rite of passage into manhood or something like that. We want that same thing to be true when women start menstruating, and our products can help them do that. Now, the story she built. So if she just stands up in front of a bunch of these male engineers and say, "We want these products to be enabling and empowering to young women," she would get a lot of blank stares. So she went through a process described in the book of building stories where she had consumers they invited them into like a focus group, and then they divided products into various categories. And emerged out of that process was the fact that P&G's femcare products were effective, but they didn't delight the customer. They didn't empower the customer.
Okay.
And out of that, by the way, comes an entire new product line, which was based on the Pearl. Pearl is smooth and it's elegant and has style. And so they introduced a brand at Campex is called the Pearl. And if you go to a grocery store, you'll see that half that store, that those shelf space is now this Pearl design. And the first thing they did, for example, is they replaced a cardboard applicator with a smooth plastic pearl color applicator. I mean, all sorts of stuff. And remember, this is a very, very mature market.
Right.
And in a relatively short period of time, market share goes up dramatically.
Wow.
They've introduced this new product. You now have a higher market share, higher prices, higher margins, lower costs. Total win strategy-wise. And by the way, there's a business model there.
Right.
So it's head, but it's join me in empowering your daughters.
Right.
That's a noble cause.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part of it. It's just a phenomenal story.
She's
an amazing woman.
That's an incredible example of tying the head to the heart.
Yeah.
And we've seen that a couple times with some of these different, like Dove has done that. There's been a few of them out there that I would encourage everybody to look into. But talk about a winning culture change strategy there. I mean, huge. So you're not saying that the old manufacturing culture was wrong. Right.
It's not about making something wrong here. It's about saying we can do more. We can do the head and we can do the heart and we can make a big difference here. So yeah, totally.
Absolutely. All right. Take us on to number 5.
Number 5 is, this was the biggest surprise to me, was how theatrical many of these story building things are. We got CEOs dressing up in costumes. We got them doing stuff that is so non-CEO like. And part of it, what theatricality does is it helps people remember the stories because they are just amazing. And also because the CEO is doing this stuff that is so theatrical, it's a strong commitment, very hard to back off of those kinds of things. And so it makes people. Give you an example. This is a friend of mine who was CEO of a software company, and they had been doing pretty well, but then they had a bad year. It was a very bad year. They were losing a lot of money. They figured out they actually didn't have a strategy. They hired a consulting firm. They worked together, developed a new strategy, but the new strategy meant that they were going to have to lay off 20% of their employees. That's a lot. It was going to be a big layoff. Yeah. The first in the history of the company, kind of on. So they had scheduled already a celebration dinner for the year that supposedly was going to be really good. And the CS says, well, we can't have a celebration dinner. We're losing money. We're going to lay all these people off. And the woman who was in charge of organizing that said, well, we've already paid for the venue. And it's at a very fancy hotel. She said, well, get out of this. Well, we can't get out of it. So he says, well, I can't change the meeting. We have to go to this fancy hotel. But I'm going to change the content of the meeting. I'm going to build a story.
Right.
To help us get ready for next year. So people arrive at the appointed hour, and they go into the dining room, and in this, just very, very high-end hotel, China and fancy gobblets on. And it's time to people sit down and dinner. Out comes the first course, which is bread, and people get water. Right. And then comes the second course, and it's also bread and water. At which point the CEO stands up and says, we suck. Our business has been terrible. We're losing money. We're bad for our owners. We're bad for our employees. We're going to have to do this big layoff. We don't deserve a celebration. We don't deserve anything tonight except bread and water. And so we're going to have a 7-course meal tonight, and it's all going to be bread and water because that's what we deserve as a company. But we're going to use tonight as the beginning of the turnaround so that next year we come back to the same exact hotel in the same dining room, and we're going to have a full celebratory dinner. And
wow.
How long do you think it took for that bread and water dinner to be story to be spread throughout the company?
Instantly.
And I always joke about it because this guy's is a good friend of mine. I said there were 25 people at that bread and water dinner, and there were 75 people who claimed to be at that bread and water. We only deserve bread and water. And that's all we're going to have.
Wow.
Now, I will say this. The hotel was in San Francisco, and San Francisco has good bread, so I'm right there. But still, that's theater.
Wow.
And that's just one example of there's 7 or 8 examples of this, making a totally memorable event. That makes the story so easy to spread throughout the organization.
Wow. All right. Now, that was number 5, story building as a theater. Take us home. Number 6.
Number 6, building a story cascade. So our research shows that the story building starts at the CEO level or the general manager, whatever the business leader responsibility is. Starts at that level. But if it stays at that level, then we're not really going to change the culture. So ultimately what has to happen is different people inside the organization, different levels of the organization have to start building their own stories. And so the story building is cascaded down. Now, there's some practical things you can do. For example, you can actually go to a business, and if you're the CEO, you can go to one of your vice presidents too and says, you got to build would you build a story? It has these 6 attributes. And they'll say, what story do you want me to build? And the answer is, I can't tell you what story to build because it has to be authentic to you. But it needs to be consistent with these cultural values.
Wow.
And so you can see story building. The thing you also want to do is you want to get employees at every level in the organization engaging in activities that are consistent with the new culture, and then let everyone know about those stories. So one of the examples in the book is it's a company called Traeger Grills. It's a big operation here in the States, well known. I'm a customer. Anyway, the CEO gets, long story short, buys the company, closes its operations in Oregon, and moves them here to Utah. The culture in Oregon was toxic. So he had to build a new culture. So he actually moved the organization to create the opportunity. It's a very strong move. And one of the values he's trying to get into this new culture is this unlimited commitment to customers. It's not highly differentiated products. It's not cheap. We're charging a high price. We want these customers to be satisfied. And so he's preaching that. He's trying to do stuff. And So what happens? Some lower level guy, the following occurs. It starts on a Friday. He gets this phone call from a customer who is a manager at one of their big customers, Costco in Seattle. And the guy says, my trigger's not working. I says, oh, tell me what's wrong. And he diagnoses the problem or what's wrong. He says, okay, no problem. He diagnoses, goes to the office, picks up the part that he needs to fix the problem, gets on an airplane, flies to Seattle with the part, fixes the guy's trader, helps him marinate the beef, and then gets back on the airplane and flies back.
Wow,
and that's on his own. Nothing. Just this is the value, right?
Right.
And then on Monday, the VP of Sales and Trigger comes into the CEO's office. Do you know what Bob did over the weekend? He says, no, I did. He said, and tells the story. And it turns out that manager at Costco told the general manager at Costco, who then called the corporate VP of sales at Costco, who then talked to Costco merchandising corporate, who then contacted the VP of sales, and that's how they found out about this guy. So all that's, incredible positive vibe from that customer. And what's Bob doing? He's coming to work and he's just working on some spreadsheet. He doesn't even know he's done a big deal.
Wow.
So what do? Well, and when the CEO hears this, he goes, "It's working."
Yep.
That's culture change.
Time to celebrate Bob too.
Yeah. Well, and so you celebrate Bob. So absolutely. So you the customer service award is now named the Bob Smith, whatever his name is, award, and they give out cash and bonuses for outstanding customer service, on and on. And so they reinforce that culture change but when you've got culture change, when someone down that organization is beginning to engage in those and building their own stories that are consistent with those old values.
Incredible. This is, these 6
stories are amazing.
Trade. This is a really rich business masterclass that we've just been through here on how so many of these businesses have impacted themselves through building stories and building their culture with those stories. I can't encourage people to check out this book enough. I got mine on Amazon. I'm sure you can get it wherever books are sold. The Secret of Culture Change, How to Build Authentic Stories That Transform Your Organization. Jay Barney, you've got a couple of co-authors that worked on this with you. It's just a fantastic book to lean into to build a great organization. Take us home, Jay. Anything that has really been a massive aha in developing this book?
I have actually, I have come to respect the business leaders to figure out they need to change their culture and then do what's necessary to make it happen. I know we don't have an algorithm for culture change. It's not some simple process. But the CEOs we talk to, they're 80% of our CEOs. Just they get it, and they do. They're heroic because of the culture changes they engage in. Their organizations are able to continue keeping people employed. The customers get their products. They get competitive advantage. Owners, shareholders make more money. Everyone is better off because of this culture change these people go through. And they take some hits in the process, and yet they remain focused. I'm just really impressed with them.
Awesome.
That was my big surprise, is how much I came to respect these people.
Awesome. Jay Barney, a great leader, a great business school professor. You're educating on culture here. This is fantastic. I have one question I ask all the great leaders on Start with a Win. Jay, how do you start your day with a win?
That's a great question. As a professor, I have a lot of flexibility defining. I always say I have a flexible schedule unless it's not flexible. When I have to teach, I have to teach. But I literally start every morning by saying, okay, as I set my agenda for the day and for the week, I ask the question. I don't ask the question, what do I have to do? I ask the question, what do I really want to do? What's going to give me the most joy over the next 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it is. And there's a lot of stuff you got to do, but you just keep coming back to the thing that gives you the most joy. And for me, turns out it's doing this kind of work. It just gives me enormous satisfaction. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. What do I really want to do? What's going to give me joy? Jay Barney, business school professor, author, and a great friend who knows how to change culture, or the formula behind it. I mean, it's up to us to make that happen, folks.
Correct.
So check out Jay's book. Look up Jay online and at the University of Utah at the business school there. Your good friend Jay, thanks for bringing all of this to us, and thanks for starting with a win.
Thank you.